Audio made possible by www.jackettome.com. Audio Fanfiction Productions presents Wide Awake. Fanfiction written by Angscada003. Fanfiction inspired by the Twilight Saga written by Stephanie Meyer. Chapter 4. Peanut Butter Panaceas.
Edward's point of view. When the sun finally rose, I was once again limited to the confines of my room. M8 had his little whore, Rosalie, over for the day, and I wanted to avoid any and all contact with her. I was half hoping Jazz would come with her to keep me some company, but he was still on mother duty for the weekend. So, I was alone again, sketching mindlessly on my bed with my earbuds in and a heavy tune playing. When noon approached, I remembered my earlier observations about the internet. Something as dramatic as what happened to Bella would surely make the local news, wherever she was from. I stared at the door with trepidation, knowing a run-in with Rose would result in an immediate confrontation. She loathed me for me. One, I hated her boyfriend, and made no secret about that fact. Secondly, she was under the impression I had corrupted her darling twin brother. I mentally snorted at this. If she only knew how much trouble I kept him out of. With a resigned sigh, I rose from my bed and opened the door slowly, like a fucking bomb was about to go off outside it. Peeking out and down the hall, I slowly made my way to the second story of the house, walking down the stairs in as much silence as possible. I noticed the hallway was empty, and all the doors closed, so I slowly made my way to the front of the hall, to Carlisle's office, where the computer was located. Once inside, I closed the door and locked it, letting out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. I walked over the expensive machine, and started it up with a hum, collapsing in a desk chair, and running my hand over my face, to keep me alert. I performed my search without many results at first, before I realized Bella was probably short for something else. I eventually landed success on a search for her last name. A local newspaper in Phoenix, Arizona had an article on the incident. Before clicking the link, I allowed myself a moment of guilt for going behind Bella's back for this information. It was, however, short-lived. Fuck it. I loaded the page and began reading. Home invasion in quiet Phoenix suburb leaves 1 dead, 1 injured. 30-year-old Philip Dwyer was charged Tuesday with the murder of 34-year-old schoolteacher Renee Swan. Preceding the murder charge, Dwyer is also charged with kidnapping, assault and battery, with a deadly weapon with intent to kill, and breaking and entering. More charges are pending. Authorities were called to 250 Maple Avenue, after a distress call last week. Officers arrived to find the body of Swan inside the home. The cause of death was a knife wound to the throat. Upon further inspection of the home, authorities found Swan's 16-year-old daughter locked in a bedroom closet, bound and gagged. She suffered numerous broken bones and lacerations, and is being held in protective custody at Phoenix Medical Center for treatment of malnutrition and dehydration. She is said to be in stable condition. Her name is being withheld pending the notification of relatives. Dwyer admitted Sunday to breaking into his ex-girlfriend's home 5 weeks ago, and holding Swan and her daughter hostage for nearly a month. The exact events leading up to the incident are unclear, but Dwyer admits to intentionally injuring his victims, and shows no remorse for his actions. His mental condition remains unclear, as well, pending psychiatric evaluation, before the trial. I stopped reading, and shut the computer down, disappointed I didn't get as much information as I had hoped, but relieved to learn the perpetrator was in custody. Deciding my curiosity could only be satiated by Bella herself, I made my way back to my room. I could hear the most repulsive noises coming from Emmett's bedroom door, and both cringed at the fact I was in such close proximity to their intimacy, and smiled at the fact they were both far too occupied to notice. I returned to my bedroom and sighed contentedly. This room was my sanctuary. Even if it couldn't supply me with the sleep I so desperately desired, it provided me with much-needed privacy. I was a very private person. I didn't even allow Jasper into my bedroom most of the times. I don't think Bella fully appreciated the gravity of the situation on Friday, when she asked my permission to remain in my room. But of course, how could she? She didn't know me. I walked over to my balcony doors with the intention of catching a smoke, but got a sudden rush of dizziness. I stood swing in the middle of my room, and instinctively knew my sleep deprivation was reaching its peak. Experience taught me, if I didn't try to catch some sleep soon, I succumbed to the worst symptoms. Since I had no particular desire to hallucinate this afternoon, I slid over to my bedside table, and set my alarm clock for 2 hours away. I don't even remember lying down on the bed, but I must have, because 2 hours later the screeching of my alarm clock tore me away from the dream I was having. I shot straight up in bed, panting, and sweating, and smelling like Hemet on a practice day. I raised a trembling hand to my clock to cease the unsettling buzzing noise. It took me a long while to recover, but I didn't move a muscle, just fucking sat there shaking in bed with tears running down my face, like a fucking baby. I was disgusted with myself. Carlisle returned that evening to an inconspicuously clean house. I sent him a curt greeting on the way to the kitchen to make myself a sandwich, which I ate alone in my room. I figured I'd go out tonight at midnight. I would have to sneak out through my balcony to avoid the notice of Daddy C. But I was rather experienced at this task. I almost considered bringing my sketchpad or a book for Bella, then decided it would be too dark to enjoy such activities. So at precisely midnight, I made my way out to the balcony empty-handed. Swinging my legs over the wooden railing with a grace I wasn't sure I'd possess in my sluggish state, I climbed down the lattice covering the south wall of the house. With a quiet thud, I landed lively on the soft wet grass of my backyard. So fucking smooth. I inwardly gloated as I turned to make my way to the gazebo. Like last night, Bella was already seated on the bench waiting for me, her long brown hair free from her hood. She turned when she heard me approaching, and sent me a small smile which I returned.
"How very juvenile delinquent of you,"
she quietly goaded as I took a seat at my side of the bench. It took me a moment to understand what she was referring to. "Oh," I said, slightly surprised she was watching me. "You saw that then?" I questioned with a smirk. She nodded in the darkness and I just shrugged at her. She rolled her eyes at my nonchalance towards sneaking out and slid the plastic bag down the table. "More cookies?" I smiled, and reached in the bag to take one. I wasn't hesitant, like I was last night, having more confidence in Bella's baking skills. I took a bite of the cookie, and immediately recognized it as peanut butter. But not just any peanut butter, fucking delicious peanut butter. My eyes rolled into the back of my head a little. I hummed. "What's the name of this cookie?" I questioned while consuming the cookie reverently.
"Peanut butter panacea,"
she replied in a smug tone, taking a cookie from the bag and biting into it. I let out a little chuckle at her use of impressive verbiage. "Panacea," I said, slowly, looking at the cookie in my hand. "A cure-all. Appropriate," I said with a smirk and finished my cookie. She shrugged modestly.
"It's an older recipe, the best peanut butter in my collection,"
she replied confidently. We sat in silence for a while, enjoying the cookie cure-all. It wasn't trading tonight, which is an unusual event for Forks, but there was a wet lingering mist in the air, and since it was mid-November, it was still cold as fuck. This was a good thing, however. I took a moment to appreciate Bella's smell, which was wafting over me from the slight breeze. She smelled like cookies and flowers. Very feminine. After a long while, the sound of Bella's soft voice broke the silence.
"I fell asleep today,"
Bella said in sad tone. I turned towards her to notice she had her head down, her hair shielding her face from my view. "You too hot?" "Yep, me too actually," I frowned. "How long?" I asked, swinging my leg to straddle the bench, so I could face her. Bella shrugged.
3 hours maybe. I was home alone on the couch watching television when I fell asleep. Then I woke up from a dream.
She trailed off in a low voice, and turned to face me then. Her eyes didn't look quite as tired as last night, though you could still clearly make out the dark circles around them even in the darkness of the gazebo. She licked her lips and darted her eyes around the misty yard, before meeting my gaze again. She leaned towards me slightly, and continued in a whisper.
"I was in my bedroom again."
I furrowed my brow and leaned towards her to hear her better.
"In my old house."
She darted her eyes around the yard again, and licked her lips, something I was recognizing.